My name is Rashad Jennings, and you may know me from my time in the NFL, New York Times bestselling author, or lighting it up on Dancing with the Stars. And if there's one thing you come to know about me, is when I set my mind to doing something, I do it. And right now, I want to know why there are millions in the Black and Latinx community that do not have access to safe food and medical care, and why specifically food allergies over-index in these communities, and what we all can do to help solve the problem with inclusion, diversity, equity, and access to safe and nutritional food for everyone. My name is Rashad Jennings, and this is The Big Idea.
Hey guys, how everybody doing? Welcome back to another episode of The Big Idea. And today I have the luxury of having on Dr. Milton Brown. And without, getting into any further ado, I would love Dr. Brown to introduce yourself to the community, what you do, where you're from, and tell us something that we wouldn't know about you. I think that's a fun question.
All right, Rashad, thank you so much. And thank you for what you do and what you stand for. We really appreciate you in the community and standing up for food allergies and these types of things. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland, but raised in Birmingham, Alabama. And I went to a historically Black college called Oakwood University, and then got a degree in biology. Then went on to the University of Alabama at Roll Tide and got a PhD in organic chemistry. I was the first African-American PhD in organic chemistry there. And then I went on to the University of Virginia and received a MD, a medical degree. And I worked at University of Virginia from 2001 to 2006. And then moved to Georgetown University, where I became the center director for the Center for Drug Discovery and Development, and became an endowed chair in oncology. And what I've done, just in simple words, is just develop new medicines, trying to develop new oncology drugs and different types of drugs for other types of diseases. And so I've spent my life, my purpose, really just making medicines. That's what I do. And you asked me a question, what would people want? What would be something kind of interesting for people to know about me? I'm a long-range fisherman. In fact, last Saturday, I just got off a 10-day trip, about 500 miles out in the ocean, past Cabo, San Lucas, fishing for 10 days. And for big game fish, trophy, tuna, mahi, wahoo. So that would be something that's kind of different.
That's awesome, man. Fishing's fun. I go deep sea fishing in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. That's where we port out of at least once a year, man. And I thought it was funny. You were given all of the universities that you attended. Obviously, knowledge is something that is you're full of, but I don't know how much loyalty we have, because you said Roll Tide instead of Go Cavaliers. I heard you say you went to the University of Virginia, so I don't know what happened there.
Oh, wahoo wah, baby, wahoo wah.
Well, so today, we get an opportunity to talk about access to treatments and what that means in the world of food allergies. So can you give us a little bit of an overview of what type of treatments are used for those mild and severe food allergies, and what does the therapeutics look like for these type of patients?
Yeah, so there are different types of treatments. I mean, the first thing is access to treatment. That includes access to detection. First, you got to detect it, you got to test for it, and then you got to diagnose it properly. And then from diagnosis, then you have to have treatments. And in the world of treatments, there are very acute treatments where you would use an epinephrine or some type of pen to treat an acute problem, but then there are long-term treatments to try to overcome allergies using immunotherapy or steroid use, as well as some other types of therapies. These therapy also includes avoidance, and that is trying to understand the triggers, the things that start the allergies and start the events, and trying to avoid those things that trigger these events. The problems come when you have allergies in small infants and kids, trying to detect what those allergies are before they become a real problem. I mean, serious food allergies, people die. You get anaphylaxis, which is a big word for a really sudden onset of a serious inflammatory problem, which usually causes the one to lose their airway. And there have been deaths from food allergies. And so it's a serious issue. It's one that we need more funding and then more attention to in that regard.
Absolutely. And I wholeheartedly agree that we need so much more attention, and people's hard-earned money's going in the right places, as you said, properly diagnosed, and doing everything that is right by people. And, with that being said, what would you say, are there any barriers present in getting access? Because we talked about access. Is there any barriers present in getting access to proper treatment for food allergies, logistically, financially, and or otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you bring up this point, logistically getting access to facilities. Not all facilities, as you know, Rashad, are equal. And so, not all medical facilities are equal. And so having access to high-end medical facilities, and not to say that you can't get great care at a community hospital, but then there are other hospitals that are associated with universities, national centers, government facilities that are really cutting edge, and getting access to those higher end facilities sometimes is not in the purvey of some individuals. And so really getting the logistical issue of actually how you get there. I mean, I know some hospitals, I won't call their names, I've worked for them before, they don't have access to public transportation. So you can't get access to those if you don't have a way to be driven to those hospitals to get to those places. And so there are issues with that financially. Sometimes the best doctors are not covered under certain insurance networks. And so patients, in order to use those doctors, those specialists, would have to come out of their pocket and have to, accrue debt, which is, sometimes very, very problematic for those who don't have means. And so, I also want to say this, that, all specialists are not the same, just like all running backs or all defensive backs are not the same. And so, you have some really good doctors who some people may not have access to, which could really impact their chances of being diagnosed properly, as well as being treated and handled properly. And so these issues play into care and to barriers that stand in the way. And, it's funny you asked the question, because sometimes certain groups, sometimes wealthy individuals, sometimes you don't even have to be wealthy. You just could be highly insured. That means you have a really great insurance plan and you have an advantage over some others who may not have that, and you can get access and overcome those barriers. But there are barriers, and these barriers lead to sometimes misdiagnosis, sometimes they lead to problems treating patients, and sometimes patients become overwhelmed and don't have access to the proper care. And so you bring up a great question. The barriers are important, and how we overcome those barriers will impact our treatment and our outcome.
It's my mind is spinning in so many circles listening. First and foremost, As an athlete, I train. I truly had to learn how to train and take care of my body. I was a 260-pound overweight, chubby kid, glasses, asthma, point 0.6 GPA, fifth string running back, right? Like it took a lot. And I truly had to learn how to train. Once I learned how to train, I started watching how other trainers were misleading so many of their clients. And
Yeah.
I couldn't really do too much about it. And I'm sure it's like that in the world of physician and therapeutics, where you may watch another practice that is taking place the wrong way, and you see the long-term vision of what's going to happen to someone, but you have to stay in your lane, and I sometimes we can have access to the wrong things. Access is one thing, but access to what? And so, I think it's important for us to continue to get educated, and I appreciate your time of educating us and myself, because this is where it's at, right? I think a lot of people withhold information. That's what lends people to success, is sharing information. And
Mhm.
with being as straightforward as you possibly can, and as a matter of fact as you possibly can, I want to ask you this: what are the consequences for those who are not able and do not get access to care that they need?
Well, Rashad, as an athlete, if you didn't get care for your body or for your injury, those types of things can be devastating to your career. For kids who don't get diagnosed properly early on, they suffer from years of struggle. It can impact their school. Later years, it can impact their work and attendance. And with all of that said, if you got a injury, for example, early on in your career, it can kill your opportunity. And so if you have in the same place for patients, young patients who have severe allergies, these allergies, if left untreated, can really hinder their opportunity because they're struggling to manage them and overcome. And sometimes having a long-term problem like an allergy can lead to depression, and that can impact how you succeed or how you work, how you see life. And so talented people with allergies early on, their lives can be greatly impacted. And then the last thing I would say is, I hate to use a big word, but there's always the threat of this word. It's called anaphylaxis. It's a sudden onset of a really fulminant allergy that can cause death. And so with that in the back of your mind, you're always worried about, when I start, feeling allergic responses, rash, or I start sneezing or getting a lot of phlegm and having a hard time, shortness of breath, is this leading to something that's going to take my life? And to have that over your head all of the time, those consequences can really wreak havoc on one's life. And that's why it's important to recognize food allergies early. That's why it's important to diagnose them correctly. And that's why it's important to treat them. And all that is wrapped into access to care, access to diagnosis, access to treatment.
Mm. And this is the big idea. And so I like to ask, because we focus on inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. And how do existing treatments relate to Black and Brown communities? And are Black and Brown people with food allergies able to get treatment? And are the therapeutics that exist today less, more, or as effective to those demographics than others?
Well, I will say that I believe that Black and Brown individuals need more access to treatments. There are great foundations like FAIR that have resources and connectivity to access that are beginning to change the game and to really have an impact on food allergies. But there's a great need for more physicians, who understand the differences in food intake. For example, in some communities, Black and Brown, there are food deserts. It's hard to get good food. And so you eat what you have. And so some of the food that you have may not be best for your allergic position. And so you're kind of left in an unbreakable circle. In regards to therapy, I'm excited. There's some bright minds, and I know FAIR has developed some interesting centers, but there's some bright new therapies that are and thinking that are being developed in regard to gut immunity, how the immune response is with your intestines and your digestive tract, the impact of reactive oxygen. These are highly reactive molecules that burst the release of inflammatory molecules such as cytokines and other molecules that cause you to have an immune reaction. And so how we manage the early bursts and triggers for allergies is a new area. Developing new types of immunotherapy for allergies is really important. And I would say what goes along hand in hand with the development of new therapies is also the early diagnosis and the correct diagnosis and developing new diagnostic methods. I want those who listen to this show to understand that for Black and Brown people, we want them to participate. We need their samples, we need their specimens, we need them to participate in studies and be involved in the process of research, because the medicines that we may develop might be very impactful for certain groups. And it may just be that these medicines will be impactful for Black and Brown individuals to make a big impact on how we react to food and in regards to allergic responses. So, I'm excited about the research and the development of new therapeutics, and we look for the future for those who are actively involved in charity to continue to support the research in food allergies, and for foundations and the government to have a improved understanding of why it's important to continue research and development of therapies, and for our citizens to participate in food allergy research. And so I'm excited, and I really appreciate you asking that question.
Absolutely. I to the bottom of my heart, I wish the measures that were taking place in order to make sure every citizen had an opportunity to vote, and the awareness that took place of the importance to vote. I wish they had that same fuel and energy to focus it on food and allergies, and to and to have the quickest access, mail-in ballots, spread it everywhere, because it's so important for a vote that happens once every 4 years. Meanwhile, people are losing their lives daily because of something we're overlooking. It's annoying, it's frustrating, and when we talk about access, there is access for some. And again, it's what kind of access. I know some people that use food stamps, and I look at their resources of what they choose from. It's not the best. I look at public funded schools, government assistant. It's not the best. How do we, I would love the focus to change a little bit there. And I'm hopeful for that in the future. And speaking of the future, what is the future for food allergy treatments? And is there any new cutting edge medicine or scientific breakthroughs that you could discuss with us? And if so, how soon will they be accessible?
Yeah, that's important you ask. I mean, Rashad, when I think about the same things that you mentioned, you think about access to food in our communities. Like, some people are eating from the corner grocery store. They don't have a Whole Foods or Harris Teeters or high-end grocery stores to choose fresh vegetables. Some people have never eaten something that come off of, right from the farm. they're eating processed foods. They're not eating whole grains and fresh vegetables. And so along with the allergies, there's the food component and the food access component. And as you said, there's a big difference sometimes between private education and what kids are eating there versus public education. And there are big differences between what people are eating off of public assistance versus what someone who has a great job and access to food are eating. And so though all those things can contribute along with the problems with allergies. And I share your passion. I hear your passion on trying to alleviate that. And we, along with the policy changes and also, developing programs that look at the disparities between access. We have to force people to do right with our vote, like you said. We got to make people aware of, the disparity of resources from an inner city as compared to, a middle-class neighborhood. And if we can improve those conditions, it'll make it equitable for everyone. I'm excited about the new therapeutics that are being developed. Sometimes I get afraid that, when new therapeutics come, not everyone has access to them because they can't afford them. When medicines come out for the first 20 years, they're on patent. And so they're very expensive. And that contributes to access. And there are problems with that we have to overcome as a nation. But, the concept that we have to continue to develop new therapies, because there's exciting things that are developing in centers around the country that are food allergy centers that are even supported by FAIR and other grateful and humble people who invest their money into these centers to develop them. I'm looking at new therapies which involve the gut immunity, which involve stem cells in the gut as a way of overcoming allergies. We're looking at various ways to stop the triggers by blocking reactive oxygen species that are triggered in early allergies, and to develop therapies that are not harmful, that don't cause other autoimmune problems or don't cause serious side effects. These are the types of therapies that we want to develop, new and innovative therapies that are safe for our people, and that can be used also in the pediatric population as well. And so thank you, Rashad, for asking the tough question, because, all people deserve to have access to these kinds of therapies. And I'm excited for our future. I mean, we as Black and Brown people contribute greatly to the infrastructure of our country, as well as to the science and medicine component. And I'm excited to, be associated with someone like you that can get the message out that we need more access. We need Black and Brown people to participate. We need advocates for food and allergy research. We can look to the promise and to the hope that new therapies are coming and that new ways to treat allergies are on the horizon. So thank you so much for your advocacy.
Oh, absolutely. And listen, I appreciate you. It's teamwork, man. I think everybody, that's associated with FAIR has a vision of what the future can hope to be. And speaking of FAIR, and we just want to give you kudos because we found out that you announced officially that you joined FAIR's board of governors. So that's an amazing accomplishment, and it speaks volumes of who you are in your heart and what you dedicate your life to. And with that being said, I do want to ask for the viewers, why did you decide to join the organization, and what do you hope to accomplish through FAIR?
Well, Rashad, food allergies are really devastating. And I know a little girl who, when she was maybe 4 or 5, her lips really blew up after she ate a popsicle. But we didn't really realize that. And then she had some candy and her lips blew up again. And over several years of struggling with this, we found all of a sudden that every time she ate a blue candy or a blue popsicle or put on something that some clothes that were blue colored. She actually had an allergy to blue dye for some reason. It was just, it's the weirdest thing.
Wow.
And, her life was impacted until we were able to figure out what the trigger was. And so I realized that, it could have been worse. Her allergic response could have been that big word again, anaphylaxis. It could have been life-threatening, fulminant death response. And so I realized that food allergies are devastating. I realized that we had a lack of advocacy for food allergies. And I was really impressed by Lisa Gable and the FAIR group. They have a national foundation that is really dedicated to food allergies and food allergy research and education. I mean, education is a big thing. We didn't talk about that, but you're a guy who knows that education can help you achieve great things in life. Go to college, play football, go to the NFL, do great things, be an advocate, be an upstanding person in the community. I mean, that's just incredible. And I understand the same thing, that education is important. So we also got to educate our communities about food allergies and how to deal with them. And so, this foundation brought together all those things. And I thought I could add something to this foundation by bringing my 20 years of experience in finding new medicines and really helping them develop a strategy to take the science and the research that they have been investing in and begin to look at that portfolio and see if we could develop opportunities to develop new medicines from that. And so I felt like I could be assistance to them, and they're a great organization, national organization, trusted organization. And I felt like this was time, and it was an opportunity for me to bring my skill set to the table to really impact food allergies. So that's why I joined.
That's awesome, man. And I think access is to get in the grocery store, to access is getting to the doctors, access is getting to the treatments. The education is knowing what to buy in the store, knowing how to listen. I appreciate FAIR for given the combination of access along with education of people like yourself. Again, this is Dr. Brown, who is, his resume speaks for itself. We're getting educated, which is a major part of this whole entire internal process of getting everybody healthy. With fighting food allergies is something that's very paramount in our communities, that is very heavily swept under the rug, especially, I can speak for myself, a Black community. This is something that people need to be aware of and, start to take ownership and responsibility. I think we cannot just wait to be spoon-fed everything. But however, we do need to at least know that there's a spoon available. And it doesn't happen overnight, but you do want to give opportunities for those who are thriving and striving, and even those that may have not had the opportunity to fully understand the chance. And I just want to commend you again, man. I thank you so much for what you're doing, because there's a lot of people listening to this that what you've said has resonated, that has clicked a light switch and has made some of the viewers, and even including myself, want to get more involved. Again, week after week, I get the privilege to talk to so many successful men and women and that have succeeded, mountains of trophies on how they have overcome adversity in the field of food allergies. And I'm just constantly inspired to Google, research, tap into my local community, figure out how I can get more involved. And so I just wanted to say thank you. And again, with that note, wrapping things up, is there anything that you can leave the listeners at home with that are potentially troubling with getting the treatment they need, or getting access, or where do they go? Is there a website to get more information on how they can get access, where to get tested? And just as a doctor, as a friend, as a brother, as an uncle, or whatever hat you could be possibly wearing to so many people that are listening, what advice would you give them to encourage them that there is a brighter future in the food allergy world?
Oh, thank you, Rashad. In my community, I'm known as Uncle Milt. I got all these doctorate degrees, but I take the Uncle Milt as the greatest name that I could have in my community. And I want to say that, my daughter for years would be bloated. Well, she's a sprinter. I mean, a world-class sprinter, but she would come home bloated, and we couldn't figure it out for years. I mean, she was an adult by the time we figured out that she had a gluten allergy, and that it was gluten that was causing her to get this bloating and feeling bad. And once we were able to figure it out, even in her adult life, things really improved for her, and her diet really, really helped. And we had the means, Rashad. My family has the means to do it. But I look back and I see other young people who may be struggling with these things that don't have the means. And how do we team together and help those young people? How do we impact their food, their life, in order for them to be able to address allergic problems that they may be having with, even just with gluten? FAIR has a great website of resources for young people to go on to Google, FARE. If they Google that and they go onto the FAIR website, it's tremendous in regards to pointing people to local resources that they can access to. They should actually try to plug into FAIR and access the experts that we have in the foundation. I identify with you in my desire and my passion to help others. And I see an opportunity for us to bring real recognition to the issue of access to food, access to treatment for or diagnosis of allergies, access to treatments for allergies, and improving this for communities that don't enjoy the access that you and I enjoy right now. And so, it's incredible that you have taken on this passion. I have this passion, and I'll block for you, Rashad. I'll block for you. Let's make a touchdown on this one. And together, I think with the science and with your energy and celebrity and acclaim of the things that you've done really great in your life, I think we can make an impact and really improve our communities in regards to food access, allergy treatment, access, diagnosis, and treatment. So, hey, man, thank you so much for what you do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And guys, always appreciate you tuning in on the big idea. And we will see you on the next episode.